The Honorable Wilbur Ross, Secretary of the United States Department of Commerce, to moderate a discussion on investment success.
You're going to have to get used to me popping back and forth day after day while you're here, so I hope I don't wear out my welcome. But this morning, I'm pleased to introduce Governor Scott Walker and Dr. Louis Wu, who join us today to discuss investment strategies in today's economy. Scott Walker has been governor of Wisconsin since 2011, and he plans on seeking, and we plan on him winning, a third term this November. We wish him well. Governor Walker has been a champion for Wisconsin industry and has helped his state embrace the next generation of advanced manufacturing. Dr. Wu is Special Assistant to Foxconn founder and CEO Terry Gou. His company is making the largest foreign direct investment in the history of the United States, namely $10 billion. Come on, we can do more applause than that for 10 billion. The plant will be in Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin. The investment is expected to create 13,000 permanent jobs and 10,000 temporary construction jobs. It'll be among the largest manufacturing plants in the entire U.S. The additional investment in jobs will come through Foxconn supply chain partners and are expected to open in the region. Foxconn, founded in 1974, is one of the all-time great success stories in international business. It's based in Taipei, Taiwan, and manufactures the majority of Apple iPhones in its factories in China. The company is one of the world's largest contract manufacturers. In 2016, Foxconn had an amazing $132 billion of revenues and employed 1.3 million people. We have a unique opportunity to hear from Governor Walker on Wisconsin's success in attracting Foxconn, and from Dr. Wu on why the governor's overtures worked. So I'm going to try to prompt their discussion, but it's going to be an informal roundtable between them. And I think there's an important symbolic message to it. Some of you have articulated to me concern that there's a lot of uncertainty in trade relationships around the world. Well, here is a major Taiwanese company happy to commit huge sum, $10 billion, to the U.S. They know things are going to settle down, things will have a good ending, and they're going ahead with their investment. So let's get on with the discussion. First question I have is for Dr. Wu. How does a global firm as big as Foxconn evaluate investment in the U.S. versus elsewhere in the world?
Well, so first, thank you for the introductions. And that's a billion-dollar question. If you look at U.S. and China, both of them are the biggest economies of the world, right? If we want to work with our customers to satisfy their demands or to be in a position to take advantage of the consumer electronic markets, there's no other place to go but China and U.S. And so the question should be, why U.S. now and not why U.S., right? I think now is that it has to be because of President Trump. right? Because of the pro-business policies that have been putting together that attracts our coming over to Wisconsin. I remember that our chairman, Terry, has met up with the president for about several times in the last 14 months. And every time, I think President Trump tried to impress upon him there's only 3 things he needs: jobs, jobs, and jobs, right? So I think that sincerity and determination to bring a better life to the American is very sincere. And so I think that certainly touched the hearts of Terry. And to move it forward, I think is that take the Office of American Innovation. It has been extremely effective, and also try to make it easier for us to invest in America. Ever since we met up at the White House, we have this regular phone calls on a weekly basis that just to check on us, see if everything is okay, and what other things they can do. So that kind of connection, that kind of reaching out to us, making it a lot easier to invest in America. And I'm sure the second question you would say, why Wisconsin? Right? That question is simpler to answer. It's simply because of this man, right? I think Governor Walker has shown the fact that, business is not as usual in the States. And he's shown the eagerness and also the openness to invest together with us. And also he sees with Terry there is a future of investing in Wisconsin to build up something which is not just a fab, not just a factory, but a high technology hub, which one day would rival that of Silicon Valley, rival the financial sectors in New York, and would make the new generation of talents not only want to stay in Wisconsin, but want to move to Wisconsin to work. I think that's the vision that both of them have.
Right. Well, Governor Walker, you clearly made a successful sale. You have a real convert in Dr.
He paid me a lot of money to say it.
But what was the magic serum?
About $3 billion worth of it, right?
Well, by paying $10 billion to forget that $3
exactly.
billion.
It's a pretty good deal on my part, right?
So just what did you do to spirit him away from the other states that were competing?
Well, first of all, it's really listening about a little over a year ago, and I remember the exact date, April 28th, 2017. We got up really early in the morning and flew here to Washington, met with Louis and Terry, chairman, and a number of other officials who had just previously met with the President of the United States, as was mentioned. And the President made a real impression on them about the importance of investing in the United States. It was up to us to make the case about where in the United States to do that. But we listened to that first meeting. We met in the Chief of Staff's office to the President in the White House, and there were 3 things that Terry said: time, talent, and cost. I've not forgot them. We've made that a centerpiece. And I think whether it's the largest investment, economic development investment in the history of the state, the largest foreign direct investment, even with the nice one you announced earlier today, this is still the largest foreign direct investment in the history of America. And we're proud not just that it's in the United States, but that it's in the great state of Wisconsin. But for us, it was about really listening to what people were interested in. So we've never forgot about that. Time, talent, and cost. The cost at the state and even at the local level, we provided incentives, but they matched. They're paid for performance, so they're tied into those 13,000 good-paying, family-supporting jobs. They're tied into the capital investment, $10 billion. But some people asked me when this first was announced at the White House, almost exactly a year ago in June of last year, when did we start working at it? I said, well, we met on April 28th earlier last year, but we really started working on it 7 years ago.
Wow.
In our state, we changed our tax climate. We've cut taxes by some $8 billion. If you're a manufacturer, for example, if you're interested in doing manufacturing in our state, we've all but wiped out the taxable liability in production in our state because manufacturing, big and small alike, is a big part of our state's economy. We passed right to work because we knew, while that alone wasn't the only attraction, we knew a lot of companies that were looking at Wisconsin from around the world wouldn't even look unless we had the ability to have that on the table. We changed and pulled back on prevailing wage. We did regulatory reforms. We put in place lawsuit reform. We've invested hundreds of millions of dollars into our workforce, not just K through 12, but in our apprenticeship programs, our technical college programs, and others. But probably the most important thing, I think back to when I flew over and saw as part of the Sharp operations, which, by the way, I look at these panels and think they're good, but if you really want 8K technology, you need to get the new Sharp LCD panels that are going to be made in the state of Wisconsin. But when I looked at that technology, I said, we really spent the time to understand not just that we wanted their business, we wanted to know, what do you guys do? What is your passion? And I can see it, I can understand it. For example, the panels, I tell you, not only are they great for entertainment, they're great for healthcare, they're great for security. There's so many different applications. We wanted to live that because if they were going to be in the state of Wisconsin, just like we like Harley Davidson and we like Miller Beer and we like Oshkosh Corporation vehicles, we were going to have a passion for what Foxconn makes, and we certainly do.
Great. Now, Dr. Wu, you're a great believer in just-in-time manufacturing. How will you accomplish that with your new facility in Wisconsin?
Well, we certainly would build, if not bringing along our supply chain. So we're not going to do it alone. So a lot of people will look at it and say, what type of number of jobs that we're going to create, that we said we're going to commit to 13,000 high-paying jobs. But that would be a supply chain of a multiplier effect of 3 to 4 times of that will be coming along with us in years to come. So that would be a complete supply chain and complete ecosystem that would come with us.
Great.
And Secretary, just one other thing too, you mentioned just in time. I would add a remarkable thing, I think, for anybody here who's been involved in development. So we met April 28th last year. We made the announcement at the White House in June. We already started moving ground less than 1 year after we first met. This is for a $10 billion project. When the president announced it, he pointed out being here in this region, he said it's big enough to put 3 Pentagons in it within the amount of space that's going to be under roof. So you're talking 1,000 acres, over 20 million square feet out there. In our state, we compare that not to the Pentagon. We say it's big enough to put more than a dozen Lambeau Fields where the Green Bay Packers play football. But it is enormous. It is an ecosystem, and timing-wise, we were already ready to act on it. I mean, think about interacting with government, not just in the United States, but anywhere in the world. Less than a year after the first meeting, we are already moving forward with actually moving ground to clear the site, to start putting up the structures out there. That was part of that first meeting, saying time, talent, and cost. And for us, we understood that timing was critically important for a project like this to be successful. And so we moved heaven and earth to make that possible. And we continue to have this great partnership between Foxconn and their overall team, both in construction and in getting ready for operations.
Sure. Well, one question a lot of American manufacturers are dealing with now is the problem of finding workers. You're going to need an awful lot of very well-trained workers. I'd like to hear from both of you how you're going to cooperate and accomplish that objective.
Sure. Well, in our case, this is a W. It's not for Walker. It's not for Wisconsin. It's for workforce. And so it's really got 3 parts to it. One part is traditional education and training. We've put more actual dollars into K-12 education than ever before, but we put a renewed emphasis into preparing young people for the career paths that are going to be available. So whether it's in manufacturing, electronics, healthcare, you name it, and we put new resources in for early college credit, for apprenticeships, for internships, as well as in higher education, our technical colleges. We've doubled our youth apprenticeships. We put more in the University of Wisconsin system. We've tied it even into what's called Wisconsin Fast Forward, which is customized worker training. That's the traditional route. That's the primary source of where the workforce for Foxconn and others, because we have 2.8% unemployment, the lowest in the history of Wisconsin, one of the lowest in the nation, so we're building a. Second is breaking down barriers. So beyond just traditional ways of getting people ready, we've transformed our welfare system to put more people into the workforce and higher expectations for those who are able to work to be in the workforce. We've changed, and we're one of the top states in America for helping people with disabilities enter the workforce. We've changed our correctional system to get people ready for vocational and technical skills. And then the third part is completely new for us, and that is we're now recruiting and marketing for talent. Not just for employers, not just for businesses. We're in Chicago, we're in the Twin Cities, we're throughout the Midwest and beyond, actually out recruiting Midwest millennials, recruiting people who went to Wisconsin colleges and universities, and interesting enough, we're recruiting military personnel who are retiring because Wisconsin's the #1 state in America for veterans benefits. And so we think it's a pretty compelling argument for someone who's been in the military anywhere to come here into the state of Wisconsin. It fits in actually very well because that's part of the mindset that the Foxconn's developed with their recruitment efforts as well.
Well, the way we look at it is that in America, we are never short of talents. There are a lot of talents. But currently, I think the young generation of talents tend to be drawn to the West Coast or to the East Coast, right? They are either leaving home from the Midwest or not being drawn to Midwest. So I think we are looking at our task is to create a platform, an ecosystem, right? So that they would want to be coming back to the Midwest because there are tremendous opportunities for them to grow and excel because the high technology will be here again. Right? So it's not only just to pristine the environment, the beauty of the state that will attract them, but the job opportunities. I think that we will do best.
Absolutely. We call, Secretary Ross, we call the area, Terry and I came up with this name last year, Wisconn Valley, because it's right between Chicago and Milwaukee. It's this great corridor that's going to be advanced technology, advanced manufacturing, high-tech technology. And we think that's going to be a huge attraction. And as Louis mentioned, we're a state filled with, we're surrounded by 2 Great Lakes, the Mississippi River, some 15,000 inland lakes, a few more than our neighbors in Minnesota. And we've got a great place to draw people to, and now we've got the career path that's really state-of-the-art, best in the world.
Sure. Well, how helpful has the Foxconn deal been to you in attracting other businesses, other types of businesses to Wisconsin?
Well, and that's part of our long-term goal is to really create this focal point. So Louis mentioned all the different suppliers, that's a part of it, but we've got a whole corridor there. And even before Foxconn, Haribo, which now has its North American headquarters, is going up, or North American operations, is going to make gummy bears. If you've, in fact, I made a visit over to Germany too to see their operations there. We're excited about that, but we think in that corridor between Chicago, Illinois, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin, you're going to see this great magnet be created where not just talent wants to come in, but other businesses want to be a part of this Wisconn Valley, this larger ecosystem. And you mentioned the 13,000 direct jobs. We anticipate another 22,000 indirect and induced jobs. So 35,000 jobs in a place like the state of Wisconsin, even in the Midwest, that's like adding a good-sized city. And so, as you can imagine, part of our focus now is not only in helping prepare the site and all the work that's done with that, we're actually looking at building more housing, creating more opportunities for people who come from outside of the state of Wisconsin to work, to be able to buy new homes, to have smart homes, smart communities, a whole new facet there that's been a good partnership with Foxconn, and particularly with our Foxconn's chairman, Terry Go.
Secretary Ross, if you don't mind, I'd like to add a couple more points on why now, especially given the escalated tension between China and US. The way we look at it is the following. As a global company, of course, we would not like to see any trade conflicts between the 2 largest economies, because certainly it's not good for the global business company like ourselves. But we believe that it's either time now to address it, or one day, sooner or later, we have to address that issue, right? So I believe that the dispute would be worked out. It just takes a bit more time. And also that we have a lot of confidence in the leadership of these 2 great nations. I think that they have built a certain trust and friendships, and certainly they are men of wisdom. I believe that they will work things out. And also, number 3 point that I like to add is the fact that no matter how we look at it, US is a driver of global economic growth. If US economy is not growing, the world economy is not going anywhere. Similarly to China. So we would like to see these 2 economies continue to grow, continue to be the driver of global economic growth. So the more we can do to help these 2 countries to grow peacefully, maybe check and balance, and competitive, constructive competition, I think they are all good. So what I'm saying here is that we would believe that I would appeal to the international community here is that invest in America, right? This is the right time. Especially I understand that there are 273 representatives from mainland China and from Taiwan. Then I would urge you to invest in US and sell it to China. The consumer in China would love that, right? Similarly, if You cannot do manufacturing in U.S. right away, at least to do research and development in U.S., and then manufacture in China and sell to China, right? That will also help the trade deficit, and also will be able to take advantage of all the talents available in U.S.
Well, thank you. That's a very good world view. I think everyone here can applaud you for those sentiments.
And Wilbur, and we'd add an addendum. Just come to Wisconsin. It's easy. Foxconn did it. We'll take care of you all. We'd love to have you. But he's exactly right. The president's right. President Trump talks about trade imbalance. Best way to deal with that, when we've been talking about this for months, is exactly what Louis said. Invest in America. We probably don't have to have all of you, but we'd love to have as many of you that are interested in investing in Wisconsin. But obviously, any of my colleagues, you've heard some today, you'll hear from some more. That's the great way to deal with this issue. It's similar to what the president said 2 weeks ago at the G7 that largely got undercovered, where he said, we talk about tariffs, why don't we just talk about no tariffs? If we had a level playing field, if we had a global economy where our trading partners all work together, that's probably the best case scenario. And certainly dealing with the trade imbalance, the more investments that we have, foreign direct investments in our states and across this nation, the better off we'll be.
Well, I think that's a very good summary of the president's end objectives.
Absolutely.
We're not looking for trade wars. We're not looking for high tariffs. We're looking for a level playing field, and we think our country can be fully competitive with anyone on a level playing field basis. Problem is, there's a lot of history, and free trade, real free trade, is about as frequently occurring as unicorns in the garden. People talk about them a lot, but I've never really seen one. And it may sound strange to use tariffs as an intermediate tactic to get people to negotiate, but watch. You notice the German car companies have been in the newspapers lately saying, well, maybe we don't need a 10% tariff anymore versus the U.S. 2.5. 6 months ago, you didn't hear conversations like that. When we put the tariffs on steel and aluminum, suddenly Europe starting taking safeguard measures. Japan brought in a compliance department for trade enforcement. It's starting to catch on to people. These are global problems. At the end of the day, they're going to be global solutions, but we need shock tactics in between because there's been too much inertia. Too many people have been profiteering at other people's expense, largely ours. So the end result is exactly what you fellows have described, and I think that's an important message for those of you from abroad to carry back to your governments and to your fellow businesses.
Well, and Secretary Ross, you've got a great connection with that because you've laid out the overlaying policy that this administration did, but at the same time with SelectUSA, with this great summit, is you've not only talked about the issues brought people together, and I was watching, saw a couple of my good friends and colleagues, actually a good example, one from both parties, or both good friends, Governor Hickenlooper from Colorado, the state I was born in, and Governor Ricketts, who was just up before from Nebraska. SelectUSA, this summit does a nice job of bringing governors in because, as Louis can attest to, you can have a national policy, but where the rubber hits the road is at the state and the local level. And Commerce has got a good sense of that. It's bringing governors in, local officials. That's where we make things happen. And obviously, that's why we're here today, not only to talk about singing the praises of Foxconn, but to tell you, big or small like, we'd love to have you in our state. And for all the reasons Secretary Ross just talked about, I think we're getting there.
Yeah, Commerce is really a high-priced dating service, but unfortunately, we don't charge.
But Secretary Ross, as a global company, I believe that there's a lot more private sector can do to help drive the balance of the trade deficit between the two countries. Right. And so I think maybe we should have the private sector to play a more proactive role, right? Instead of just kind of tagging along. So that's one of the reasons why we're here is taking that proactive role.
Well, obviously, to the degree we can increase our exports, it not only helps us, it stimulates the global economy. So we want more trade. We just want it to be fair, to be free, and to be reciprocal. And events like this one are going to go a long way toward accomplishing that. So I think there's not just a good corporate purpose, not just a good jobs purpose for your state. I think there's a very important geopolitical implication of this event and the other events that we're trying to provoke here at the SelectUSA Summit. Now, Governor Walker, other than climate, what do you feel is the inherent advantage of Wisconsin?
Well, it's like real estate, location, 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 right? I mean, part of the appeal, not only at Foxconn, but 2 weekends ago, I was down in just outside of Walworth, Wisconsin, where Kikkoman, which if you've ever had soy sauce, Kikkoman, which is just outside of Japan, just outside of Tokyo, I should say, in Japan, Kikkoman came 45 years ago to a small little town in south central Wisconsin. Actually, ironically, Walworth, Wisconsin is right about 5 minutes from where I grew up in a small town. On one side of me was a guy by the name of Paul Ryan, who grew up in Janesville. On the other side of me was a guy by the name of Reince Priebus, who used to be the chief of staff for the President of the United States. People often ask us what was in the water back in those days. I said, we're from Wisconsin. It wasn't the water, it was beer. But Kikkoman came back in 1973 to that spot because of an abundance of soybeans, clean water, the people, which they really liked, the Midwestern work ethic, and location. They wanted to be in the middle of the country. They wanted to be easily accessible to different locations and distribution routes. They wanted to be close to the Chicago mega city, if you will, one of the mega cities of the world, but the location was just right in Wisconsin. And so in our case, you can see in this corridor I talked about, Wisconsin Valley, not only for high-tech advanced manufacturing, but just in general, there's a boom in that particular category, or that particular corridor, I should say, because of its proximity. We're right in the middle of the country. We're easily accessible. You can get there not only by the road. We go through the Great Lakes, which some people may know, others may not, that we can actually get things out across the ocean through the Great Lakes to the St. Lawrence Seaway. And we've got tremendous air assets, and not only in terms of Lake Michigan and Lake Superior, we've also got the Mississippi, which is another route to the world as well. And so location is really good. And as anybody who's looked at real estate knows, whether it's for your own home or it's for your business, location, 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 not just for getting product to and from market, but also another part of real estate is cost. You can get all those things. You can be close to a global mega city. You can be in the middle of the country. And the cost of real estate, the cost of land, the cost of doing business is a fraction of what it is on either coast in the United States. So it's a really good environment. We've got an abundant educated workforce. We've got some major assets like the University of Wisconsin, which does more than $1 billion a year in academic research and development. There's a lot of good things going, and that's why we're pleased that great corporate citizens like Foxconn are not only building, but will be employing some of that great talent in the state of Wisconsin.
Well, Dr. Wu, as we get toward the end of this session, I'd like to ask you, what are the most exciting new products that your company, Foxconn, is working on? A lot of people here know that you're a great leader in finding the next new product and doing a wonderful job making it. What are the new things you're really getting excited about?
Well, we have only less than 2 minutes left. You know, I probably need at least half an hour to tell you what we're working on.
I think everybody would be willing to spend that half hour.
Well, but certainly, you know, in order to achieve the vision that Governor Walker and also Terry have to build a Wisconsin Valley, so one day would rival that of Silicon Valley and also the financial sector in New York, I think we have to build a platform, an ecosystem. So we understand that in order to do that, we need more than just one company to achieve it. So that's why we're really building an ecosystem. We call it as an 8K plus 5G. So we will be working with startups, we're working with existing companies to build vertical solutions on this 8K plus 5G platform. I mean, one example would be the clarity of the future 8K televisions or the display would be at least 4 times that of the naked eyes can see. So that would have a huge impact on healthcare. Yep, on healthcare and medical solutions. So that's the kind of things we're looking at. And also now we're looking at ourselves. It's not just building a fab or building a manufacturing site, but we are an enabler of talents. We are an enabler of new investments. We are certainly enablers of new technology. And certainly, we will be the enabler of transforming the economic structure of Wisconsin. So only then we can have a whole bank of companies, talents to join us to really to make the Wisconsin Valley a reality.
Right. Well, we've just ended with that very happy note, precisely on schedule, and that shows you how effective Foxconn is. I didn't have to interrupt or interfere. They closed on schedule. I hope the rest of you feel you've learned something from these two. I certainly have, so I think we should give them a big hand. Thank you, Philip.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Governor.